Hello, my name is Mallory Jenna Robinson. Join me on A Hateful Homicide, a true crime podcast dedicated to telling the stories regarding the murders of transgender, gender non-binary, and gender diverse community members in the United States and abroad. This is A Hateful Homicide.
911, what's your emergency?
Yeah. A transgender woman has been shot and killed in North Baltimore. Alpha?
In the U.S., trans women of color have a life expectancy of just 35 years.
This happens on a daily. Another one of my friends got killed right up the street from here.
These cases are true. The victims are real, and their voices matter. This is A Hateful Homicide. The murder of Ally Steinfeld. Sunday, September 3rd, 2017, Cabool, Missouri. Warning, the following episode you're about to listen to will contain audio evidence of misgendering. Listening discretion is advised.
4 people are under arrest in connection with the death of a transgender teen. 17-year-old Ally Steinfeld, who was born Joseph Matthew Steinfeld, was reported missing on September 14th. Authorities in Missouri say her body was found badly burned in a bag that was left in a chicken coop near a mobile home she was sharing with 3 of the suspects, 18-year-olds Andrew Verba and Isis Shower, and 24-year-old Briana Calderas. They've all been charged with first-degree murder. 2 of the suspects allegedly said Andrew Verba bragged about killing Steinfeld, stabbing her in the genitals and gouging her eyes out. Reports say all 3 of them allegedly burned and disposed of the bodies. A 4th suspect, 25-year-old James Grigsby, is charged with abandonment of a corpse and tampering with evidence for allegedly helping hide the body. None of the suspects are facing hate crime charges, despite objections by LGBTQ advocacy groups. A spokesman for the Human Rights Campaign says Steinfeld is the 21st transgender person to be killed in the U.S. this year. For InsideEdition.com, I'm Mara Montalbano.
It's Sunday, September 3rd, 2017, in the town of Cabool, Missouri, just a 3-hour drive to St. Louis. It would be where 17-year-old transgender teen and female Ally Steinfeld would be living with her then partner, 24-year-old cisgender Briana Calderas. They lived in a mobile home park in the town of Cabool. This will be where one of the most horrific and horrendous hateful homicides of this season will be covered. The incident began around September 1st, where Ally had last reported been spoken to and had contact with any of her family and friends. However, due to cell phone evidence and other materials, there has been evidence that Ally was still alive on September 3rd. According to the participants in this hateful homicide, that would be then 18-year-old cisgendered male Andrew Verba, his girlfriend, as well as mother of his then unborn child and cousin to Ally's girlfriend Briana, 18-year-old Isis Shower, who also identified as a cisgendered female. All 4 of these individuals were living in this mobile home in Cabool. And according to Andrew, which we're going to have some audio evidence of in a little bit. Welcome, my audience. Thank you all for being here with me today. And just thank you all for bearing with me during our little mid-season break last Saturday. I'm definitely happy to be back with you all and getting into this episode, this mobile home madness that occurred again between September 3rd and September 5th of 2017. So Ally, again, who had just began her gender journey back in May 17, just 4 months shy of her 18th birthday, abruptly disappears. Her mother and father, Amber and Joseph Steinfeld, immediately became concerned. Ally, who was newly into her gender journey, was still very close with her family. And though she wasn't residing with her family at the time of this hateful homicide, the close contact that she had with them really prompted a sense of urgency and concern. They immediately go over to the home that she shared again with her then girlfriend, who she had just been in a relationship for maybe about a week. Ally had been previously engaged to another cisgender female identifying as trans lesbian as well as trans pansexual. And so again, Briana Calderas, who was a 24-year-old cisgender female, also a single mother of children, would have fit that criteria for Ally in terms of an attraction. So the two had hit it off. Ally again was going through this breakup of being in a previous relationship, even engaged, and then getting into this relationship with Briana, who she had known a little bit. Interesting enough, when Ally moved into the home of Briana, again, Briana was also sharing this home with her cousin Isis, as well as Isis's boyfriend and a friend of Ally's, Andrew Verba. And so again, as we go through this case, it's really heartbreaking because the trauma, not only physical trauma that Ally went through, but also the emotional trauma that her family still goes through to this day is really just saddening for all of us involved. And so of course, I'm going to definitely give you all some details. And again, please listen to discretion as advice, as they are very graphic. And of course, you all know me. I definitely make sure that the case is covered through and through. So I'm going to have to share those details with you, as graphic as they are. So again, just be prepared for that in a little bit. But I want to get a little bit more into exactly what happened to Ally on the afternoon of September 3rd, 2017. This was a Sunday. And so according to Andrew Verba, so again, this would have been, a time where him and Ally would have shared the home alone. Briana would have been at work. Isis was visiting some family. So according to Andrew, at this time on September 3rd, that afternoon, he and Ally were on the couch in the mobile home when abruptly he began to attack her. So all of this happens, and we're going to go into the details of what that attack looked like, but just to kind of give you this inference of what is happening around September 3rd, 2017. So throughout that entire month of September, you have these series of events. You have the last known contact that any family has with her, which is on the 1st. One of her really good friends by the name of Ashley stated in court evidence that she had last spoken to Ally on September 1st, and especially around September 9th, which would have been Ally's 18th birthday, when no one in the family heard from Ally. They immediately knew that something was wrong. They immediately knew that this was not like Ally, who they spoke to every day. Again, her mother, Amber Steinfeld Boswell, mentioned that she spoke to her child every day, and though that she and Ally's siblings resided in another town of Missouri, they still spoke. And so, especially when it came to her 18th birthday and no one had spoken to Ally, they knew it was time to report her missing, which she was on September 14th. So Ally is then reported missing, and again, Sheriff James Sigmund immediately goes out to the mobile home and questions all involved. And Andrew Verba, as well as Briana and Isis, all basically want to offer their support and help in identifying and locating Ally. According to Andrew, when Sheriff James Sigmund goes over to the mobile home, he mentions that he and Ally had a disagreement, that Ally left the home that afternoon of September 3rd, and that was the last time that he physically saw Ally. So again, this is about 11 days after Ally has unfortunately been murdered. And so the sheriff and the entire, Texas County team is having to really do a thorough search and backtracking Ally's last steps. And they do this with the forensics of getting cell phone evidence and being able to trace where Ally's cell phone is pinging. And with that being said, they are able to go backwards and realize that everything that they needed to find and everything that they needed to discover would be inside of the mobile home that Ally shared with, again, her girlfriend, Briana's cousin, Isis, as well as Isis's partner and boyfriend and father of her unborn child, Andrew Verba. The body of Ally Lee Steinfeld is uncovered on September 21st of 2017. And when I say body, I mean charred remains, crumbled remains of bones and flesh. Because when the forensics, as well as Sheriff James Sigmund, finally received word on what happened, this hateful homicide of Ally, it breaks everyone's heart. It is on September 21st of 2017 when 18-year-old Andrew Verba is brought into the Texas County Sheriff's Department. Sheriff James Sigmund and his team wants to know, where is Ally? Well, Andrew confesses, and he ultimately reveals that Ally, around September 3rd, 2017, unbeknownst to her, had been given a poison that she refused to drink. And when she refused to drink that poison, Andrew then goes and grabs a knife and stabs her multiple times. Then, after she's laying on the couch in the mobile home that he shared, this madness that's ensuing, right? He's stabbing her viciously with this butcher knife. She's laying on the couch, bleeding out, trembling, right? She's bleeding, losing blood, cold, trembling from the blood loss. Andrew, who then tells the sheriffs that he couldn't bear to look at her eyes fading, takes the knife and gouges out her eyes. At that point, Ally is dead by the afternoon of September 3rd, 2017. Blood is everywhere in this mobile home, this madness that has ensued. Briana and Isis have now returned. And in the midst of this, you have them take the body into the back of the mobile home, Ally's body, and then set it on fire. Before the body is set on fire, Andrew instructs Briana and Isis to go to the Walmart that's near the town of Cabool. You can see them on surveillance video buying evidence of, an accelerant, other arson materials to really be able to dispose of Ally's 17-year beautiful body. Again, just 5 days shy of her 18th birthday, would have been getting ready to start her senior year of high school when this horrendous, again, hateful homicide had happened. And again, as we go through this case, it's really, important for us to also talk about a demographic of our trans folks that we don't really discuss much, and that is our trans women who are in love with and romance our cis women, right? And this term of identifying as trans lesbian. And that is how Ally identified. And it's really important for us to take a look into this, because when we think about this hateful homicide and how it correlates to Ally's death, does her gender identity play a role? Well, Detective James Sigmund and the rest of the investigative team wanted to know. So they bring in Andrew and Ally and Isis, and they question exactly how and why did this occur. And Andrew's version on September 21st of 2017, again, this is about 3 weeks after the hateful homicide where this mobile home madness occurred. And he ultimately gives this tale of, child abuse, sexual assault, and violence that has been placed upon Briana for this past week. Now, her and Ally, who had known each other for a few months, and again, Ally was now living in the mobile home with Briana. Isis and Andrew had only been in this relationship with Briana for, again, maybe about a week or so. And Andrew stated that there had been, according to him and Briana, 2 instances where Ally had allegedly sexually assaulted Briana. The first was not in the vision or sight of Andrew. He did not witness this sexual assault, but Briana did share to him and Isis that probably within a couple of days of dating, that Ally had allegedly sexually assaulted her. And then in response to that, threatened Briana and her children. So basically, Ally sexually assaults Briana and then states that if Briana tells anyone, that authorities would be, called. But then on top of that, her children, Briana's children, would be harmed. So that was the first time, and this would have been around August 29th of 2017, just again about 4 days before the hateful homicide. Then going into September 3rd of 2017, that Sunday, is that morning around 9 a.m. in the mobile home. Briana's getting ready for work, and according to Andrew, Isis is already away, and he's like getting up, gonna go play some video games. And he hears like this kind of discomfort tone in Briana's voice, like where it seems like there's a struggle. He walks to the room that Briana and Ally shares, and according to him, which he tells the detectives, that he witnesses Ally on top of Briana sexually assaulting her. Well, Andrew then states that he tells Ally to get off of Briana. She does, stating that this is a consensual act between the two. Briana then continues to get dressed, apparently disheveled, distressed, and leaves the home to go to work. And that is when Andrew Verba decided to go ahead and poison Ally Steinfeld. And when she refused to drink the poison is when he then stabs her multiple times, gouging out her eyes, stabbing her in the genitals, then placing her in the back of the mobile home, the backyard, burning the body beyond recognition, crushing the bones, and this process happened for several days. And then inside of the chicken coop in the backyard where Briana, Isis, Andrew, and Ally all shared, the remains were left. And that is where Sheriff James Sigmund and the rest of the Texas County team of Cabool, Missouri, located the final remains of 17-year-old transgender female Ally Lee Steinfeld. Wow. This hateful homicide, as we continue to go through it, I mean, it's really heartbreaking, my audience, because you have, this 17-year-old teenager who, again, just shy of her 18th birthday, described as bubbly and outgoing. She was one of 5 children of Joseph Steinfeld and Amber Steinfeld. And again, just though she was newly into her gender journey, she had made a post on social media around June 13th of 2021. And she states that, "I am proud to be me. I'm proud to be trans. I am beautiful. I don't care what people think." Again, born September 9th of 1999, grown up in Missouri, and then also moved into Florida for a little bit before ultimately relocating to Texas County of Cabool, Missouri, where she lived. Ally also loved the city of St. Louis, where she would go and frequent and visit, and also go with friends and her mom. And her mom, Amber, also admits that, she was much of a cuddler and loved to spend time with her daughters. So again, you have this family who is just beside themselves. And one of the things that's really heartbreaking too is that, Ally's dad, Joseph, will states in court interview that he goes to the home that his daughter was last living, and Andrew comes out and expresses concern and shakes his hand and gives him a hug and says, "Mr. Steinfeld, I am going to help you find Ally. We are going to find Ally together," knowing the whole time that Ally's badly burned and crushed remains were in the backyard in the chicken coop. And so again, as we go through this case, it's just really heartbreaking because, we're going to actually, at my audience, I'm going to play a little bit of Andrew's confession with you all. So you're going to really hear from his own words from September 21st, 2017 of what happened, how this transpired, how this hateful homicide occurred, how this mobile home madness led to this 17-year-old individual being murdered and gone forever. And so again, I want to just take a moment as well and just really start to go through a little bit of Andrew's trial, because he was the only one who actually decided to have a trial. Everyone else in this hateful homicide, including Isis, Briana, as well as a fourth individual, 25-year-old cisgender James Grisby, a friend of Andrew's and Briana's, were all, involved in disposing of the body, especially when they came in later and uncovered this hateful homicide. However, though they disposed of the body, evidence does show that they had plotted and planned to do this hateful homicide at least several days before September 3rd. So we know that Briana, Isis, and particularly Andrew had all been in conversations about what to do with Ally. And of course, Sheriff James Sigmund wanted to know that this had anything to do with Ally's gender identity, her beginning her gender journey as a trans woman. And according to Andrew and the others, no, this all had to do with and stemmed from this alleged sexual assault, this alleged, threat against Briana's children, against Andrew and Isis and their unborn child. So according to Briana, Isis, and Andrew, and even James, Ally was this unhinged, erratic, sexually violent and frustrated teen who was just using Briana for a place to stay and her body, and had very, a strong intent to, murder Briana, her children, and pretty much everyone in the home. So Andrew had to commit this hateful homicide. He had to, create this mobile home madness where this blood evidence would be uncovered through the forensics team by the Texas County Forensics Department. They're uncovering Ally's blood. They're uncovering evidence of fingerprints, on the evidence, on the murder evidence, the chicken coop. And so all of this is going to be tying into, these individuals being charged and convicted. And so ultimately, Isis Shower, the mother of Andrew's unborn child at that time, was sentenced to 20 years. She pled guilty to disposing of a body. Ally's partner, Briana Calderas, Isis's cousin as well, was given 8 years, and then James Grisby was given 4. Again, but Andrew Verba was the only one who allegedly also was the only one participated in this hateful homicide. He was also the only one who decided to take his chances at trial because he strongly believed that his actions were justified. Though he alleges that he's remorseful, he still alleges that his actions were justified. And so again, I just want to take you all through this trial, just a little bit of it, to kind of give you all the sense of trauma for the family too, because they have to hear all of this evidence of what was done to Ally Steinfeld.
Money man accused of killing a teenager in 2017, and it's in fact wrapped up today, at least testifying today, is wrapped up in that Greene County courtroom. Andrew Verba is charged with first-degree murder for stabbing his friend, 17-year-old Joseph Steinfeld Jr. Bailey Stroll has been covering all 3 days of this trial so far. She's live tonight outside the courthouse. Bailey, who was on the stand today?
Well, today it was a teacher and a counselor from Houston High School, as well as a psychologist, and then friends and family of Andrew Verba, who took the stand today for the side of the defense, all saying they had never seen Verba act aggressive or violent leading up to the murder. Now, Verba's former teacher told the court that Verba struggled in school and was in special education programs and scored extremely low on tests, but was otherwise a very quiet and well-behaved student. The clinical psychologist was on the stand for a big majority of the day today, testifying that Verba suffers from several learning disabilities and behavioral disorders, including ADHD and a form of high-functioning autism that affects his decision-making. But the state continues to claim that Verba had the ability to at least consider whether or not he should go through with the murder in the hours leading up to it. Lauren Richardson says that in the end, Verba likely thought he was being a hero in some ways, saving his fiancée and his unborn child from potential harm.
I think the combination of problems that I've discussed today, from a neurological standpoint, to impair his ability to control his impulses, yes.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is he said definitely, not that made him. You're confusing. It definitely did not. It definitely occurred. And you went all the way. Correct.
I suppose I did.
And so again, you could hear just a little bit of that audio evidence from Dr. Laura Keller, who again was, one of the clinical psychologists for Andrew Verba, and was really, in this session that she had with Andrew, because one of the things that they wanted to also talk about was diminished capacity, right? Was Andrew Verba in his right mind? Because again, there's hateful homicide. I mean, we've covered some cases in these past 2 seasons of like violence and trauma, but when we start getting into, you're talking about dismemberment, you're talking about disfiguring, disembowelment, all of these things are so beyond the typical norm of just of what would even be almost kind of defined as a standard homicide, right? And so to go that beyond, to really almost eradicate this 17-year-old from existence, you're talking about like removing of the eyes, you're talking about removal of the genitals, burning, the crushing of the bones, placed in a chicken coop for the chickens to feed off of and produce excrements. All of these things were done in such a way to just really remove Ally from this whole existence. And so I think Dr. Keller really was trying to get into the psyche of Andrew at that time. And so, you have these 2 attorneys who are going at each other, right? You have the prosecutor, Park Stevens Jr., who is, speaking on behalf of the Steinfeld family, speaking on behalf of Ally, right? And then you also have Michael Jacobs, who served as an attorney for Isis and James and Briana and Andrew. And so then you also just have Kevin Briggs, who's also an additional attorney for Andrew. So you have all of these key players who are like fighting it out here in the Greene County Judicial Court facility at 1010 Bookville in Missouri. And so this is where all of this is unfolding at this time. And Andrew Verba's case officially begins on Monday, August 3rd of 2020. This is almost 3 years after the hateful homicide of Ally Steinfeld. And again, you just see this sense of, sadness and profound confusion and loss for everyone. Also, one of the things to mention is that, Andrew's mother, Ozzie Spicer, gets in and she testifies as well. She's one of those who speaks, and she talks about how her son, this quiet, kind, loving, cisgendered 18-year-old guy at the time, though again, as you heard, has some learning disabilities and things of that nature, never had an aggressive nature, never had a violent bone in his body, according until him in his mind was defending his family and his unborn child. My audience, we have to really, and I want to pose this question to you all too, and please feel free to, share on our Instagram, share, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please feel free, do you believe that Andrew Verba was of right mind and sound when he committed this hateful homicide, or is this all an act? And so that is going to be something that I want you all to think about again as we go through this case, because it's really, really, really pivotal in how we do things. And so again, just now, what I want to do is take you all into a brief part of his confession, right? That he talks for quite a bit, but really kind of that initial conversation that he has with Sheriff Sigmund and the others, to give you this sense of like where his mindset was. And again, this would have been when they ultimately, after the forensics, of the mobile home uncovering that Ally's blood was throughout the living room, the couch, as well as the backyard. And so they're bringing Andrew in. They're also talking to Isis and Briana in other rooms at this time. And so Andrew ultimately knows that the jig is up, and this is his time to speak in his mind, his version of the truth.
I'm just going to come forth and say it. I have no choice. I killed him. Where's he at? I burned him in the backyard. What happened? He threatened to kill my baby, grandmother, her grandmother, Isis' grandmother, Briana's children, and he raped Briana in front of me. When did this happen? Wait, the raping or or to start from the beginning, I don't know. I don't know when he started doing it. From what she told us, it was like 2 days before she had to go to the hospital because she couldn't stop bleeding. So were you pregnant when this happened? The rape? Not the first one. Not the one that he was not even in the understanding they only know each other for about. Exactly. So they start there. Wait, they don't know each other for a week. They've known each other for a while. And stuff like that. Okay, I'm gonna dating a week. Okay. So what did she say? She wasn't told to tell us Joey threatened to hurt her or her children. And so it started after they came back from her house on Melbourne, and she drove home to where we were, and she was hurting. She then told us what, and Joey was talking to her, saying basically took her to the car, and from what I could understand, told her not to say anything, or he hurt our kids. Or he hurt our kids. So tell me what you witnessed, okay? Let me back up. I'll go first. Because Amber is having you. Yes. What led to that night? What made you get me? He gave me no choice. He blamed me. Okay? To try to justify your action, right? Okay? For you to take somebody else's life and have them pretty justification. I don't want you to trust me, but it was in the afternoon. I heard Al coming from the bedroom. He was on top of her. I walked out. I didn't believe what I'm seeing because we've been friends for years. Like a year. Joey in the bedroom. That bedroom was a trailer. From the bathroom was a thing. You're Al. I heard Al. And then the light stopped. I walk in there and he's on top of her. I close the door. I don't know what to do. I'm startled. I've never seen him do anything like that. We've been friends for like a year. I've never imagined him to do that. So I walk back and I'm like, you get the fuck off her right now. And he's like, what am I doing wrong? We're just having sex with him. I knew he had mental issues. So as a friend, I'm like, well, just come play video games. I think she went to work that time. She went to work. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she did. And he came back. Me and him were still being friends and stuff. I had no intent on hurting him. And you guys get the fight. Toward the end, yeah, I'll tell you that in a minute. But I'm sorry. I don't understand the fuck. It's just it's been engraved in my conscience for a while. I feel bad. That's what I did. I just want you to tell me you didn't make it happen. Which I help you. Try to help you. He hated it. Got into alcohol that day. And that's when he started bringing up stuff about hurting her kids, killing them, or getting someone to kill them. I don't know who saying that to me. Be vague or be descriptive. He was saying this to me. Briana was gone at this time. This was when they went on holiday about you. He was saying about he just wants to hurt them. He just wants her for her body, essentially. He doesn't care about the kids. He wants to make kids with her. Stuff like that. And he called him his kids and stuff. Like, he really looked like he cared about them and stuff. I just think that this, that, or what we do. You gotta tell him, yeah, just one day. I'm gonna sit down. Alright, okay, I'll sit right back here, okay? It's fine.
When Sheriff James Sigmund steps out at this time, as you could hear, Andrew Verba is given his version of events, right? You could hear, again, it was a little muffled, but just in case, Andrew confesses that he did kill Ally, that Ally was in the midst of initially sexually assaulting Briana that morning of September 3rd. And then Briana goes to work, and according to Andrew, Ally is still upset about this and continues to threaten Briana's children, as well as Isis's grandmother and his unborn child. And so when Sheriff James Sigmund steps out in this moment, what you see happens here is him getting, more evidence, more communication. He takes his phone with him, and you can see that they're continuing to get this evidence to build against Andrew Verba because they know that's far from the truth. They also know that 2 other individuals had been involved, or at least knew about the planned, premeditated, hateful homicide, which is why Prosecutor Park Stevens charged Andrew Verba with first-degree murder. Though he was not charged with a hate crime, Prosecutor Park Stevens would quote TheSalon.com stating, "I would say murder in the first degree is all that matters. That is a hate crime in itself." So again, Andrew Verba definitely, didn't really have much of a logical defense. As you could hear the interrogation process, the sheriff states, there should definitely be some kind of logical reason for why you would commit such a heinous and hateful crime, and to such the magnitude that it was. And like so many people, the victims get blamed. The person in this, murderer in this situation blames Ally for her own hateful homicide, for the reason why this mobile home madness occurred that Sunday afternoon. That because Ally was threatening Briana's kids and his unborn child and their grandmother, that, he didn't want to kill Ally, but he had to. It was all in honor of his girlfriend and his girlfriend's cousin and the children. It was all for the children, according to Andrew. Even though evidence would show that text messages of them wanting to poison Ally, of them wanting to get rid of Ally, the fact that Ally had begun her gender journey and was so proud of who she was and vocal, the fact that they were uncomfortable with that around their children. So these were things that were really starting to pull back these layers of what led to this hateful homicide. The truth is that Andrew Verba, though he called himself a friend of Ally's, was not a friend of Ally's. He knew that day, that Sunday, when Ally came home that morning, that she was going to be murdered. Initially by trying to poison her with a fountain drink. And then when she kind of used her spidey senses and realized, Andrew's never given me a drink before. There's been this weird tension already about how I'm expressing, how feminine I'm becoming, how uncomfortable this is making them, right? And Andrew knew, right, because he has this unborn child that's going to be born, within several months. Do I want Ally and her gender identity exposed around my unborn child, my potential son and her daughter? What is that going to look like? What does that say about me as a cis man living in Cabool, Missouri, right, this rural town? So Andrew knew logically that the best thing for him to do, along with Briana and Isis, right, because instead of just putting Ally out of the house and just kicking her out, which would have been the most logical reason for a lot of people. They plot and plan and carry out this hateful homicide 6 days before Ally's 18th birthday. They all knew that her 18th birthday was coming up. Andrew said that he had been a friend of Ally's for a year, meaning that he would have celebrated her 17th birthday with her. All of that went out of the window. All of that went out of the door when he and Briana and Isis all planned to commit that hateful homicide on Sunday, September 3rd of 2017, and then to go and help Mr. Steinfeld and Mrs. Steinfeld and Ally's siblings and friends who all loved her and all expressed how kind and bubbly and funny she was. You know, Ally, again, just had so much zest for life and was just really figuring out who she was and embraced her transness and embraced the beauty of that gender journey. And what's heartbreaking is that we'll never know where Ally could have been. We'll never know what her gender journey would have looked like for her, because all of that was stuffed out just 6 days before her 18th birthday on September 3rd of 2017. You know, and so again, my audience, we just have to continue to really talk about this sense of identity. And what I want to also do, you know, is really, again, raise awareness around our trans lesbians and trans pansexual folks who, because again, this wasn't a case like where it was a cis man who had been involved with Ally, right? And that was a result of her hateful homicide. This was a cis man who identified solely as a platonic friend. She was in a relationship with a cis woman, and that cis woman began to state and spread these, you know, these lies and innuendos about Ally, and began to really possibly increase, you know, this sense of fear within the roommates, this fear within the friend group, not only because Ally was trans, right? You already, the unknown of that, but then also the stigma of trans folks being sexual predators and sexual violators. That all goes into play here too. This is a very common thing that's thrown in there, right? We're sexualized. So of course, Ally must have been this, you know, sex crazed, you know, trans teen who was just like assaulting Briana and her children, and therefore must have, you know, rightfully deserved this hateful homicide, according to Andrew Verba. And, you know, again, my audience, as we get ready to conclude this case, you know, I just wanted to really, again, give a kudos to my trans women who love women, cisgender trans. You continue to rock it. I applaud you and love each and every one of you, our trans lesbians. And the part of this is that I want you all to understand, my audience, especially our cis het audience, is to understand that gender identity and sexual orientation are two separate things. So though Ally was assigned male at birth and then began her gender journey as a trans female, her sexual orientation was still that of attracted to feminine, cis, and or trans women, therefore making her romantic attraction and or sexual orientation more aligned with lesbian, you know, and or pansexual. And so Ally identified as both proudly and again embraced her transness as a beauty. However, I did want to just kind of give you a little bit of audio evidence from James Grisby, the individual who was like lured in, kind of laid into the game. He did know about the hateful homicide, but he wasn't there physically at the scene until later. Isis and Briana would go and pick him up after their notorious Walmart run, and they all would then go back to the mobile home and continue to conceal evidence, you know, burning the body for several days, and then of course putting the remains in the chicken coop.
4 people charged in connection with the slaying of a Texas County teen who identified as transgender has pleaded guilty and was sentenced yesterday. 25-year-old James Thomas Grigsby pleaded guilty to abandonment of a corpse and was sentenced to 4 years in prison by a Texas County Circuit judge. Grigsby was accused of assisting 3 other defendants in the case with disposing of the body of 17-year-old Joseph Steinfeld. Steinfeld went by the name Ally and was planning to transition to becoming a female, according to family members. Authorities allege that he was stabbed to death and the remains were burned. Andrew Verba is charged with first-degree murder in this case. He is due back in court on July 23rd.
Andrew Verba would be found guilty of first-degree murder in September of 2020. This 4 years after Ally's hateful homicide. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Isis Shower again is serving 20 years. In the Missouri County Department of Corrections, Briana Calderas, the former partner of Ally Steinfeld, is serving 8 years. In the Missouri Department of Corrections, as well as James Grisby, serving 4 years. And so to you, Ally Lee Steinfeld, we remember you. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever and always. Born September 9th, 1999, and resting on since September 3rd, 2017. Again, my audience, thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of A Hateful Homicide. My name is Mallory Jenna Robinson, your host. You can follow us on Instagram at A Hateful Homicide. You can follow me at Mallory Jenna 90. Please also, tune in on Spotify, Apple, and other podcast platforms alike. And also, I have a special treat for y'all. Another episode is going to be coming up after this, since we had our mid-season break last week, with the next episode. First Do No Harm, The Hateful Homicide of Tyra Hunter starts now. Again, thank you all for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your day.